Hey guys, OG Albino here, bringing you guys yet another Draft League tier list video. Today we are already on Generation 7, the last third of all of the Pokedex regions, and this is going to be a really interesting one. I talked about it last week with Kalos in the sense that the top end of Kalos is great, and everything else is bad. Someone mentioned in the comments, and I think they might be right, this might even be more extreme than Kalos. So if you guys are excited to see where we rank these Pokemon, be sure to drop a like on the video, as well as subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 5,000 subs by the end of the year, and I'd really appreciate if you help me out along that journey. With that being said, let's jump into it. Now, I would like to reiterate, I am ranking these Pokemon 1 based on their value, not their price point. What I mean by that is, if I think that Dewpider is the most valuable 7-pointer you can find, I'm going to put him in S tier. If I think that Marini is the least valuable 18-pointer, I'm going to put him in D tier. Obviously, that's not, the actual price points of those mons, but just for an example and things like that. So, for example, we'll start off with Decidueye. We're going to go ahead and put Decky Dewey in B tier. I actually really love Decidueye. I might have drafted it very, very recently, but really a great Pokemon. I think Grass Ghost is a great defensive typing and really good offensively. Really just kind of a jack of all trades, mom. Great momentum grabber with U-turn. Long reach is also really cool and a physical attack with U-turn. Not having to make contact. You can serve as a great defogger as well as a good rapid spin blocker if you have hazard stack. You could function as a sweeper with either Nasty Plot or more than likely Sword Stance, Shadow Sneak Priority. Spirit Shackle is a great move into stall. Really can function as a great ground resist too. You have reliable recovery and roost. I mean, you do it all. Decidueye is actually a very, very good Pokemon for its price point. Something else I want to mention too, really quick, because I realized I just glossed over it. Not only will we be ranking on value, I'll be ranking on value relative to other Pokemon in Generation 7. So maybe an A tier Pokemon in Kalos might be a C tier Pokemon in Hoenn, if it was in that dex, if that makes any sense. Alright, that being said, we'll keep it going. We're going to go ahead and put Incineroar probably... I'm going to put it in C tier. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of these defensive fire-type pivots a lot in draft. Obviously, we have Boots as an option, but I think we're very item-locked in that sense. And having a Dark-type that really does not like switching in on the move knockoff, it's pretty tough to me. Now, it does have some great qualities, right? It's very bulky, parting shot and U-turn for momentum. Really spammable knockoff plus flare blitz stabs. You can even SD or bulk up in some games, really not too often, but great disruptor in that way. I just think it's a bit slow, and is a bit of knock fodder for a mon that doesn't want, or for a Pokemon that resists knock at least. And again, this is all personal preferences. I know some people love Incineroar in draft, but it's a Pokemon I always really struggle justify drafting, and I don't personally enjoy all that much. So I'm not going to put it any higher. Next up, we have Primarina. This might be a hot take. I think Primarina is going to be our first S tier Pokemon here. It might move down to A tier. We're going to move it to A tier, and we'll adjust because I know there's some Pokemon at the end of this dex that are certifiably S tier. It's just going to be a while before we get a real first S tier. But Prim is an incredible Pokemon. I think in particular in Generation 9, it's incredible. Is the defensive typing of Water Fairy, if you guys have ever heard my Azumarill Glaze, is absolutely incredible in the meta currently, but has always been absolutely incredible. It's one of the best defensive typings in the game for a reason. And the 3 Pokemon with access to it are always going to be very, very solid defensively. However, offensively, Prim is so strong. Specs Prim genuinely has no pivot. It is very difficult to deal with it. I think a cool buff that I got this generation too is the addition of Psychic Noise. If you go Liquid Voice, that turns into Water Stab, and it's a Water Stab that prevents the opponent from healing in any way, shape, and form. So I think that's a really cool into Stall Breaker, like as a Stall Breaker set, and it seems like that, especially being that it lost Scald. But in generations prior, it's always been good with Calm Mind sets, with Flip Turn variants, with Assault Vest sets, with Spec sets. Even random Scarf sets are really, really good. Or just those Calm Mind, Fat, Protect, Draining Kiss, Water Stab sets are always going to be really good. And Prim is just a great value fairy for where you find it on a draft board. Alright, so next up, it looks like this tier maker has all of the Alolan form Pokemon, like back to back. So we're going to go ahead and just jump through these guys. I know this isn't Pokedex order, but it's okay. I want to get through the starters first, so I move them above this. But first up, we have Alolan Raticate, Faticate, as the kids say, right down in D tier. I cannot justify putting this thing any higher than it is right here in D tier. I have seen some people draft it. I think that gut sets are pretty cool. It's pretty strong, but it's very slow, very frail, and has a pretty shitty typing. So it's kind of hard to justify using it and use it at all. So yeah, it's going to go down there. Next up is Alolan Raichu. Very niche Pokemon. Not good on 90% of teams. or I guess 99% of teams, unless you have that electric terrain aspect on your squad with either a Tapu Koko or I guess a Pincurchin, I don't think this Pokemon is worth drafting, like really ever. However, if you have that aspect, I think this Pokemon's a menace, man. Ridiculously strong Surge Surfer, giving it double speed, plus like, you know, really, really strong coverage, and being an electric type that can hit grounds with both Grass Knot and Surf. Psychic Stab, Focus Blast for Darks, really strong Pokemon, really frail though, very liable to get revenge, and it's still easy to play around with terrain up, but I think it is a great value pick if you have terrain. I just wouldn't ever recommend drafting it otherwise, and I think if a Pokemon is that niche and still manageable, I think it belongs in C tier, if that makes any sense. Next up, we have Alolan Sandslash. I'm going to go ahead, again, put this guy in C tier. I think this Pokemon's a little bit better because I think Snow is a little bit better this generation. However, the typing is terrible. Ice Steel is really bad defensively. Offensively, it's pretty cool, though. If this thing was a little bit faster, it might be a little bit higher on my list and maybe drafted more often, but it's kind of hard to justify giving this thing speed if you're Game Freak, so I get it in that regard. But offensively, it could be really cool, and I think with Terra in Generation 9 in particular, we've seen it pop off in some low-tier Terra leagues, and not only does it like fit with like guys like Alolan Ninetales, which we'll talk about next, Abomasnow, things like that, but there's also the Slow Twins that it pairs with now, so it like fits on more teams, so I think that keeps it above D tier for me, and better than Alolan Raichu, at least in my opinion, right? I think both Pokemon are very niche, but Sandslash is better since it fits on more teams, and it also has that like the rapid spin, spiking, kind of aspect to it, which I think is pretty cool. Next up, we have Alolan Ninetales. Now, despite being a Alolan Ninetales hater myself, I am going to go ahead and put it in B tier. I think the Veil is easy to play around, however, it is very over-centralizing the builder, and if it is not prepared for correctly or played around correctly, teams can absolutely snowball, set up spam, and just be absolute nuisances and be really, really difficult to deal with. So I think Alolan Ninetales definitely deserves a B tier slot, despite me never, ever wanting to draft it. 1 second, I just got a phone call. Recording. Everything okay? Sorry, my boss was calling me, so I just had to text him and tell him, hey, I'm recording. Yeah, next up, Alolan Dougie. I mean, again, we're gonna put this guy in D tier. We'll make him better than Raticate. I'm not gonna pretend like he's worse than Raticate, but definitely not a great Pokemon. I mean, Dugtrio is not a great Pokemon if it wasn't for Arena Trap. This thing is slower than Dugtrio and does not have Arena Trap, so, I mean, is it ever gonna be good? Can't say that it is, personally. Next up, we have Alolan Persian. I personally think Alolan Persian is a better parting shot spam guy than Incineroar, so I'm going to put it in C tier. I think that Furco sets were great, and I think back in Generation 7 when this Pokemon was a thing, Z parting shot was a really awesome tool. Like, say you had like a Zygarde, you use it to break early, and, whittle teams down, then you Z parting shot and do it, heal it back to full, I mean, and then we're just absolutely chilling. Like a really, really, really great tool. Great pivot, knockoff spams, foul plays as well. Good physical pivot as well, just into physical attacks or, making contact with you and stuff like that. So great job, or great mod in Alolan Persian. I like it a lot, actually, for how cheap it is as a dark type. Doesn't beat a lot of psychics, but yeah, it's pretty solid for sure. All right, next up, Alolan Golem. Again, I love this guy. I'm gonna put him in D tier, but I will say I do love this guy. I think as like a magnet pull Mickey low tier mon, I've drafted this guy a couple times just to, like, trap cell steals and things like that. It was later on this list, obviously. Now, will I pretend that it's good? I don't think I can. I really don't think I can pretend that it's actually a good Pokemon. But man, is it funny. I love this guy. I think he's awesome. I also love his mustache. He's one of my favorite designs in Gen 7. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I think the guy's pretty dope. Next up, we have Alolan Muck. I'm going to put Alolan Muck here partly for legacy and partly for the fact that it's still pretty solid. Now, for those of you who didn't play draft back in the day, Alolan Muck has Gluttony, and it used to abuse the hell out of it with Recycle, plus like a Figgy Berry, because in the back in the day, those berries were 50%, and they procced when you were, I forget if it's 33 or 25, I think it's 33% health. But with Gluttony, it would prop at 50%, so your Muck basically had Recover, provided it did not get knocked off when holding the berry. Now, is it manageable and easy, like a way of dealing with it? For sure, but Curse, Gluttony sets were obnoxious to deal with back in the day, because Knock Poison Jab is just a great stab combination. Poison Dark is also an incredible typing defensively, and it still is incredible defensively. Right now, we can't like spam those like Gluttony sets as much anymore because only getting back 33% of your health is not as big, but still, like, the tried and true like Assault Vestival and Muck sets are still absolutely incredible at checking special offense, in particular, like strong psychics and things like that. So, I mean, it's overall just a great Pokemon. We love a little Muck. I think this guy's a great fit on a ton of teams. The Poison Dark typing is just tried and true, one of the best in the game. So, yeah, we're going to put that guy in A tier, at least for now. Next up, we have Alolan Eggy. Again, not a Pokemon I can put above D tier. I'm sorry. I know we have some Alolan Eggy enjoyers in the world, and I do think he's a cool guy. Maybe it was like some low tier Terra, but he's slow, big 4x weakness. And again, I also don't particularly play in a lot of like the low tier Terra type leagues because I don't like them. I don't like the rule set very much. So I guess like in that sense, he's a lot more valuable if he's one of the low tier guys that can do it. But again, if he's that low tier, he's there for a reason, you know what I mean? Like, he's obviously not the greatest Pokemon in the world, so I can't justify putting him above D tier. Alright, one more Alolan form. Just one more. One of my personal favorites. Can't put him much higher than C tier though, and that's going to be Alolan Marowak. Really fun Pokemon. I think if you can justify drafting Alolan Marowak and you have a team to support it aptly, it is incredibly strong. It is so hard to switch into this guy. Now, it being deathly afraid of knockoff, being item locked into the Thick Club are all big downsides, and especially being that slow. However, if you can draft it, you can position it, and there's always like 1 or 2 matchups a season where you'll be able to position this guy in and kill something every time. He's a lot of fun, man. I mean, this move's so much fun to click Flare Blitz and Poltergeist with. It does so much damage. And Shadow Bone, if you're worried about, like, you know, teams running no item or Casset Berries or things like that to check you, which they definitely might in some instances, so... Yeah, I remember when this guy got dropped in Sword and Shield, there was like a brief period where he was like super OU viable for a little bit because like nothing switched into him. So teams were just abusing the shit out of Alolan Marowak, and obviously the meta adjusted. It was early meta, but still definitely really cool. Alrighty, next up, what do we got? We got Toucannon. I mean, there's some stinkers in this gen, man. I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and put this guy in D tier. He's definitely worse than everybody. I mean, I've never seen a Toucannon drafted, personally, and I can't put it any higher if it's literally never been drafted. Another Pokemon that's just gonna, we're gonna go rapid fire. We're putting these guys down here. Gumshoe's also going in D tier. Now, I will say Picky Peck, super fire in Little Cup. If you're a Little Cup draft player, you know Picky Peck's the truth. However, he's not very good. His fully evolved form is not very good, unfortunately. Next up, we gotta put Beep Beep Bus here in D tier in some way, shape, and form. And I think that he's actually pretty viable as like a really low tier webber if you really like webs. I don't like webs. I don't think they're very good in general. So I'm not gonna pretend like I think that drafting this guy is worth it. But hey, he does his job. He gets up webs really reliably with an Eviolite and on lead as long as he doesn't get taunted or knocked off and killed or switches into rocks and dies to whatever attack. And he really is just like kind of like that suicide lead webber. But hey, if you want that, that's pretty cool. Next up, we got Big Vikavolt. I'm going to go ahead and put Vikavolt in C tier. I might think about B tier based on prior generations only, but keeping into account that Vikavolt lost Roost this generation, it's really hard to justify drafting this guy for me, man, because Bug Electric is actually an incredible typing, especially in conjunction with Boots. I liked Vikavolt in Gen 8 because it had the option of being that Weber, but also was really good offensively and defensively with Levitate, that Bug Electric typing, not having to take hazards with Boots, and roosting and volt switching and just kind of pivoting around. Really cool Pokemon, especially agility sets, throat spray sets, a lot of cool things. But now the fact that it lost Roost, it's hard for me to justify drafting with how slow it is. It really is difficult for me. So it's gonna go ahead and go in C tier for me. Maybe in another universe it'll move up, but yeah, not for me here. Alright, next up we have Crabominable. Another cool guy. However, are we ever gonna pretend like he's good? Not really. I've seen Josh, aka Ultra Player, go crazy with this thing in the past, like absolutely smoke with it with like Slow King Trick Room, and I think this gen it would be even more viable because of like the snow buff, which is pretty cool. But again, he's that cheap and that low for a reason. It's just not a great Pokemon. Ice is just really not helping him out defensively. I mean, the offensive typing is incredible, but being that slow is really hard because it doesn't matter if you kill everything if you can't get off an attack, you know? That's kind of Crabominable. Again, maybe like a low tier Terra guy, but yeah, hard to justify. Next up, we have Oricorio. I'm actually just gonna put one of them there. I'm not gonna grade all of them. But Oricorio is a really good Pokemon. This generation in particular, getting access to Quiver Dance actually made this guy a low-tier demon. I've seen this guy smoke through teams, especially if you could draft all 4 typings, and then maybe even make it a Terra Captain. I mean, then you just got 87 typings, and the way Revelation Dance works is it becomes your stab typing when you Terra. So if you are Electric Oricorio and you become a Water, Terra, then you can, have Terra Blast Water, or Revelation Dance, it's a Water type dance. So that's pretty darn cool, actually. Really, really cool move, interaction there with Terra. Cool Mon. Really lackluster in the stats department, but especially the electric one has really good natural typing, so you can find opportunities to set up. I've also seen, like, Fire Oricorio check the hell out of Scizor before, so... because it didn't run knockoff, because it didn't respect the Oricorio bring. But yeah, pretty cool stuff. Next up, we have Rabombi. I'm going to be generous. I'm going to put Rabombi in low B tier. I think that as a Weber, it is probably as elite as you can get just because of how fast it is, right? We never really have to worry about Taunt, which is really, really cool. Then we can U-turn around. We can Stun Spore things. We're actually decently strong, and we can Quiver Dance up. I've seen Terra Rabombi do well, and I'm actually a big Rabombi fan. I actually don't think it's that bad of a Pokemon at all, despite being a big, big Sticky Web hater, personally. So, pretty cool Pokemon. All right, next up, we have the Lycanrocs. But I don't see Lycanroc Dusk. Yo, where's Lycanroc Dusk? It was gonna give me an A tier Pokemon, bro. It was gonna be an A tier Pokemon. What's happening? Dude, I'm so sad. Okay, well, Lycanroc Dusk would have been an A tier. Is he not here? Maybe we'll find him later. We'll talk about the regular ones for now, which are not as good. Spoilers. We'll put Lycanroc Midnight down here in D tier. It's cool. No guard, Stone Edges is pretty cool, but it's just slow. It's slow offensive rock. What can you do with it, right? However, Lycanroc Midday, I think it's a little bit better. I think we do have a little bit more viability in this guy. As that, like, Sand Sweeper if you don't have Excadrill. You know what I mean? I know Kurt did really well with it in BBR one season, which is pretty darn cool. Again, I've never seen someone do well with the Lycanroc Midday before. I think it could be cool if you do like mid-tier, low-tier Terra. Those Stun Edges probably really hurt off of that, that Terra Rock, which is pretty cool, or Terra Fighting. Really just functioning as a worse Lycanroc Dusk, which isn't here, unfortunately. It's so sad. You know what I'll do is we're going to pretend that Rockruff is Lycanroc Dusk, and we're going to put him in A tier. So just pretend that that's Lycanroc Dusk, unless we see him later in the tier list and I'm blind right now. That's Lycanroc Dusk, alright? Cool. Next up, we have Wishy-Washy. Actually, a really fun low-tier water. I don't think it's terrible. I'm going to put it at the bottom of C tier. Obviously, really debilitating ability. Not a great ability. When you get too low, obviously going out of your schooling form and going into like the little baby guy, as cute as he is absolutely terrible. However, the raw stats are incredible. I mean, if this Pokemon did not have that debilitating ability, it'd be an incredible, strong, tanky water. It'd be Dondozo, but good. So I think that alone makes it somewhat worth it. And if you can position and play well around, keeping your schooling form or not getting taken advantage of when you lose it and are sacking it off, it's a really good water, especially if you don't have a lot of points. Next up, we have Marini and Toxapex. I'm going to put Marini here in D tier, and then kind of just keep in mind that Marini in D tier is basically Toxapex, but worse. And I'm not going to lie to you, I hate Pex. I'm not a Pex guy. I do not like drafting Pex. I'm very bad with it. However, I think it is undeniable that throughout Draft League history, Pex is an S tier Pokemon. Maybe not this generation, obviously, with the loss of Scald and Knockoff and then Recover Nerf. But the stranglehold that this bulky water had on the draft scene in Generation 7 and 8 has to go noticed, in my opinion. And I think I have to refer to it. And it's still good in Generation 9. It still has Regenerated, best ability in the game. Incredibly annoying to take down. Water Poison is a great typing. Spread status still with at least Toxic and Toxic Spikes. Again, really took a hit in Generation 9. Do not get me wrong. With Scald and Knock being gone and the Recover Nerf. But before that, I mean, Pex was just debatably one of the best bulky waters in the game, and I think it's important to recognize that here, personally. So, yeah, maybe I'm tripping and overrating that guy, but we're gonna go ahead and do that. Next up, we have Mudsdale. Mudsdale's gonna go in B tier for me. Really, really reliable low tier ground. Stamina is an incredible ability, especially in conjunction with Body Press as a coverage move now, which is really awesome. But on top of that, you go offensive, screw Body Press, you go close combat and Stone Edge and Heavy Slam and Earthquake. Choice Band Mudsdale is a lot of fun. Or you can go, those bulky Body Press sets. You can whirlwind things around, I'm pretty sure, or is it roar? You can roar things around, sorry. You can't really whirlwind the horse. But again, just really reliable stealth rocker. Gets up rocks. Is really annoying to take down physically. And really just kind of sticks around longer than you think because of its ability to check those physical attackers incredibly well. Next up, we have Araquanid. I'm going to go ahead and put Araquanid in B tier as well. I think it's just better than everything in C tier. Still a great Weber. Not as good as something like Rabombi or maybe like a Galvantula in my opinion because of how slow it is. But the thing with Araquanid that other Webers don't have is that it's genuinely threatening offensively. I don't know if you've seen those Terra Water Araquanid calcs with Water Bubble. I mean, this guy kills everything. He is really strong. I mean, he's seen some pick up this generation solely because of, like, if you're doing low tier Terra, you get an Araquanid and you kill everything. The calcs are pretty insane with this guy. Plus, really fat. Incredibly bulky Pokemon. Water Bubble is not only an incredible ability offensively, but also giving it a fire resistance instead of a neutrality, as well as being burn immune on a physical monster like this thing, is always just gonna be valuable. So big ups to big Araquanid here. Next up we have Lurantis, and I feel like Lurantis lost superpower this gen. I'm not sure. Regardless, it's going in D tier. I think he can definitely make you some things contrary. And again, low tier Terra, I always talk about it. I guess we're talking a lot about low tier Terra right now because of the fact that we have a lot of low tier Pokemon in Generation 7, to be honest. I mean, look at the distribution so far. But can definitely make you some people. I won't lie to you. I'll tell you, I've lost to a Lurantis once or twice in my day. But will I lie and say it's like a very reliable Pokemon? No, I will not. you can't make me. Next up, we have Shiinotic, which is actually a Pokemon I think is pretty cool. I drafted it in one BBR season way back in the day. Well, the shit out of an Urshifu because they didn't respect it and did not bring Poison Jab, which is pretty dope. Effect Spore is annoying. Spore, Strength Sap, just a very obnoxious low-tier Pokemon. Grass Fairy is very exploitable, but also has some very cool resistances and defensive applications. So I think it definitely deserves a low-tier shout-out here in D tier. Really cool mon. I don't think he's in the decks right now, but cool mon for sure. Next up is Big Salazzle, another Pokemon that's probably going to go in B tier for me personally. I like this guy a lot. I mean, like, obviously there's like the sub-toxic sets, which are really good, but I think the fact that it can do that, but also be very threatening offensively with an incredible speed tier that's hard to get in a lot of games, with an incredible offensive typing too, and Poison Fire, this Pokemon's great. Dragon Pulse is also kind of cool coverage in some matchups into dragons and things of the sort. Sometimes, are you going to be walled by certain mons? For sure, but sometimes you might be able to just bring Specs and click Fire Blast, Flamethrower, Overheat, and then Sludge Wave, and then whatever you want to click, right? So, really cool Pokemon. And again, another Pokemon I think could be dabbled and experimented with Terra, which is cool. Sub-Toxic's great, but offensive is also really good. Next up, we got Big Beware. One of my absolute favorite Pokemon to draft. I love this guy, and I really miss him in the decks. Really fun Pokemon. We're going to go ahead and put him in B tier for the value that he offers. Obviously, his physically defensive capabilities. I forget if he's fluffy or fur coat. Regardless, he's really good defensively. Like really good defensively. Into physical attackers, taking absolutely nothing from any of them. It even gets cool moves like Pain Slip. But also offensively, I've gotten Choice Band Beware before and just click Close Combat and Double Edge, Elemental Punches. I believe it got Darkest Lariat in the past too. I don't think it gets Knockoff. It's not in this gen, but in Gen 8, I actually drafted this guy a lot. I remember bringing like a bulk up Facade set and 1v1ing a Mega Medicham in Generation 8. Like, this is my goat. I love me some Beware. I think he's super fire. Then, oh man, it's time. We've come to the point in which we have to rate Serena. Now, despite me drafting Serena, like 12 times at this point in my life, it is the biggest love-hate relationship of all time. Because every time I come up to it in a draft, I go, Serena checks all the boxes for me. Let's go. We're drafting Serena. And then I use it by week 4. I hate it. And I can't put it anywhere higher than C tier because of that. Now, I know there's some big Serena defenders that are going to come at me in the comments for this one, but I really don't enjoy the Pokemon. I don't think it's bulky enough as a physically defensive like ground resist and ground check and spinner. I also don't think that it's fast enough to function offensively with a decent 120 attack stat. And I also don't think it has the move slots to really function in a way to do either which successfully. It's really hard to just bring Serena in a non-rapid spinning role, but it's also really hard to not find one thing that stuffs you because of your 4 moveset syndrome. We just used an LTM, and every week I had to bring it. I groaned. I was upset about it. I did not enjoy bringing Serena. Not happy with this guy. Alright. Next up, on some real Pokemon, we got Comfey. I'm going to put Comfey pretty high here in B tier because I think the Mickey potential in this guy has always been insane. And like, with Terra in particular, it's awesome. I've used Terra Comfey before this gen in Showdown Leagues, and it's a lot of fun. Like, this guy's really, really cool. Really annoying for a lot of teams, not only in that like sweeping role, but also just like you turning around, being helmet, checking the fighting or whatever it might be, checking the dragon with always like being able to draining kiss it off. And again, there's like a lot of anti-Mickey potential from it, especially in a generation that's very like dark and fighting heavy. I think that Comfey actually has a really solid place. There's not a lot of steals, and again, we can just U-turn on those steals, get in our breaker, and click a button. I actually really like Comfey as a fairy. I know I actually might be in the minority with this, but I think this guy's really good, all things considered. Alright, next up, Oranguru. I mean, we're back down here in D tier, unfortunately. Down goes Oranguru. Again, I don't know if I've ever seen him do anything. I'm gonna go ahead and put him down here. There we go. Simeon, though, his counterpart. Pretty cool mod. I actually really enjoy this guy. I'm going to go ahead and put it in C tier. I think as an offensive fighting, there's definitely a lot better options in the game, but Defiant's a really cool option. We can U-turn around. We're decently strong, have good coverage as well, so pretty cool guy. Actually, I'm not super opposed to Simeon. I think he would actually do really well in this deck in particular too. So, shame that he's not in the game. Big Golisopod. Golisopod. I love this guy, actually. He's not going in D tier. Oh, no. Oh, no. No. Hold on. I think we just went out. Okay. Ooh, that was so scary. Chat almost lost my mind. Where's Golisopod? We're going to move him up. Probably pretty high in C tier, actually. I really like Golisopod a lot. Whether it be as that strong first impression / Aqua Jet / sucker priority user, SD threat, or spiker, or even using emergency exit to your own benefit, switching it in, taking a hit, getting a free switch out. It's like a built-in eject button if you're playing it correctly in some instances. Now, are there some instances in which it sucks? Yes. Would Golisopod be way better without it? For sure. But it's not as bad as people make it out to be, and I think this Pokemon is really good in the right person's hands. I've really enjoyed using Golisopod in the past, so I think it definitely deserves a C tier slot. Really hard to use, but really good Pokemon. Speaking of really good Pokemon that are really like not drafted very often, I think Palossand's the truth. I think the last time I drafted Palossand was in Pokemon Low tier last year, and I absolutely loved it. I know Keegan used it in LTM, and anytime he brought it, it looked like it was very reliable at what it was supposed to do. Was it Keegan who drafted Palossand, or did he play against Palossand? Honestly, I don't remember, but I think this guy deserves a C tier shout out. I don't think I want to put him any lower than that. Yeah, I think C tier is about fine. Low C tier, but C tier. Ghost and Ground's an annoying typing defensively, and it rocks up. It has reliable recovery and shore up. It can Scorching Sands and burn things now, which I think is really cool because it's a Ghost without Will-O-Wisp. I'm pretty sure. It gets grass coverage randomly too. I mean, it's a pretty cool Pokemon. I've even seen weakness policy sets do some work, so pretty cool guy. Definitely not opposed to putting him there. Pukimookie. Oh, Pukimookie. There's a guy in BBL. I forget who it is or what his name is, but he's like the Pukimookie guy. As cool as that is, and as much as he's a cute little guy, a good friend, Pukimookie is going in D tier. Again, very gimmicky Pokemon. It's like unaware, and it has like, you know, Mirror Coat, Reflect, stuff like that, but like, does that mean it's good? No, because it's not Shadow Attack like something like WAP, right? To where like, everyone could just switch, they could just taunt, you know, like, there's a lot of options to play around Pukimookie, so I'm not gonna pretend like he's good. Next up we have Type Null and Silvally, two great Pokemon. I'm actually going to put Type Null in B tier and Silvally in A tier. I love both of these guys. I think they're both really solid in all honesty. Type Null, a little bit more passive, but great defensively. Just U-turns around forever. This is the Vepsis mod. If you watch Generation 8 Draft League, you know Vepsis uses this thing better than anybody has ever used it before. And Silvally is like that Jack of all trades mods, right? We can be defensive, defog, U-turn parting shot, right? Kind of idea. We can be like a special variant, we can be a physical variant, but we also go like SD Flame Charge. SD Flame Charge sets last gen work great because of the multi-attack buff, moving it up to, I think, 120 base power. Giving a guaranteed 120 base power stab move with no drawback is absolutely incredible. And having a Pokemon that can be every typing at once is pretty incredible. It was Terra before Terra, baby. You know, like, you don't get as much of a boost, but it was Terra before Terra, and you didn't have to click the mechanics. So, definitely really enjoy big Silvally here. Next up, we have Minior. I'm gonna put the shell cracked one on because it looks cooler for the what do you call it, video. However, I guess C tier. I think this guy could be cool. Terra, I haven't really seen it happen, but I think he could be cool with Terra. His ability has interesting interactions, letting you Shell Smash a little bit freer. But I'm not gonna pretend like he's good. No, it's still just a Minior, and can be played around aptly and accordingly. Lamala, a Pokemon I have drafted before, and I think is okay. Now, I think the only reason you draft Kamala, and the reason I picked up Kamala in TGS back, a few months ago, wasn't because I thought he was good. It's because he is one of the best Spectrier checks in the game, and we allowed Spectrier. So I think that that's actually something that is kind of worth looking into if you're playing in a Spectrier league, or say you have a terrible matchup in a Spectrier, you have a 2-pointer that doesn't matter. Maybe you pick up Kamala. Can't be burned, gets knocked, can get a U-turn around, it's a big nuisance, checks spec really well, so yeah, pretty cool Pokemon, that's my guy. Next up we have Turtonator. Oh man, can I put this thing above D tier? I don't think so, unfortunately. We're gonna go ahead and put him in D tier. I guess he spins, I don't think he does anything else, I'll be honest. I know he can smash, so smash with a Fire Dragon, great stab combination and great coverage. He's just slow, just really slow. Really, really slow, and that's kind of hard. Next up, we got Mimikyu. Dude, the streets are gonna be mad. Can I objectively put this thing in C tier? I don't think I can. I'll put it in B tier. I'll say I'm a big Mimikyu hater. I think Mimikyu is good if you use it correctly, or better if you use it correctly. All the time, I see a lot of SD bullshit. Not strong enough Pokemon to do it. It's just not strong enough without any generational mechanic, right? If with Terra, sure, SD is good. With Dynamax, sure. I mean, everything's good with Dynamax. With Z-moves, for sure, it was a good Z-move cat back in the day. But just raw Mimikyu on its own, not strong. So I think Mimikyu is much better used as a Willow supporter, as a red card holder, as an eject button holder to get a free pivot into your breaker, as a Pokemon to come in, take a hit guaranteed, and curse or something like that to force a Pokemon out. Like, there's a lot of cool options that you can do with Mimikyu when it comes to its support move pool. I think that the reason I don't like Mimikyu so much is because I very, very often see very offensive Mimikyu. And I don't think offensive Mimikyu is particularly good. So we're going to say B tier, personally, right here for me. Okay. Next up, what do we got? We got Bruxish. Dude, I like Bruxish's design. I know everybody hates it. It's a one that I was always weirdly like, oh, that guy's cool. However, is it good? No. Decently strong, but its stats are just terrible. We're going to go ahead and put it here in D tier. Probably behind these guys, to be honest. I've never seen Bruxish drafted and do well. Maybe I'll have my mind changed here soon. Who knows? Next up, we have Togepi. Togepi is also... There's just so many shit. There's this gen. We're going to go Togepi in D tier. Again, maybe like a low tier pivot. Not terrible at it. The typing is pretty rough, though. We can U-turn around. We can Wish, technically. We can Nuzzle. So, like, low-tier Pika clone with a Steel typing. Probably one of the better Pika clones, but it's a Pika clone, you know? So, like, realistically, is it great? No. Drampa is a Pokemon, actually, I do want to put in C tier. I like this guy a lot, actually. Incredible coverage. The typing is not that bad. Berserk is a really cool ability for it, right? Being really bulky, it can roost off a lot of damage, kind of stack Berserk boost. It can also Sap Sipper for an immunity, which is really cool. And again, we kind of just come in and click buttons, we glare things and make them slow. Drampa's annoying, man. One of my most annoying games ever was when Kurt brought fucking Choppel Drampa against me in CGT last gen, and it just smoked me. So, come on. I definitely can't say anything bad about him for sure. Next up is Dhelmise. I'm gonna go ahead and put this guy in B tier too. I like Dhelmise a lot. Again, Grass Ghost is an awesome typing. This guy's much more offensive. Gets a third stab and Steelworker, which is pretty cool for Anchor Shot, locking things in, just like the Decidueye's Spirit Shackle actually. Just a little bit slower. Functions as hazard removal in Rapid Spin. Again, pretty cool stuff. Good bond. It can synth. Decent ground resist too. I've drafted Dhelmise a lot in the day. Not any of this gen, or it's not in the game right now, I don't think. No, it's not. But I drafted a decent amount back in Gen 7 and a little bit in Gen 8, so I've never been super upset with it. So we'll go ahead and put it there. Alright. This is the funny part. I want you to look at the tier list right now. I'm going to take... I want you to take a screenshot of how many, like, you know, where we're distributed at. The end of this Pokedex is insane. There's, like, one bad Pokemon. In general. Like, one bad Pokemon. So... let's start. Komodo. S tier. I'm gonna go ahead and put it up here. I know some people are Komodo haters, but compared to the rest of the game, I don't know actually. We're about to have a lot of S tiers. Alright, we're gonna put an A tier, because I actually think Prim is a better Pokemon value-wise, right? Now, I like Komodo. I think, again, with generational mechanics, it's good. I think with Terra, it's really good. Z-moves, it's good. Has a lot of things it can do offensively and defensively. I think this generation has really struggled. In Generation 8, it was actually pretty good, and I enjoyed using a lot. But again, physical, special, DD, Swords Dance, Iron Defense body press sets were great last gen. And also Stealth Rocks, pretty solid Pokemon. I love Toxic variants in the past, too, but can't do that anymore. So pretty cool in that regard. But then, we get in the meat and potatoes. Tapu Koko, debatably one of the greatest Draft League Pokemon of all time. The greatest Pokemon in Generation 7, incredible in Generation 8. In Generation 9, it would have been broken in conjunction with the future Paradox Pokemon. So I'm kind of glad he's not in the game right now. However, would I lie and say I'm not a Koko Glazer? No. One of the best Pokemon ever. That speed tier, the offensive typing, the coverage, the utility. I mean, mwah, incredible Pokemon. I mean, they had to nerf terrain because of this guy, in my opinion. Another Pokemon that is only allowable because they nerf terrain is Tapu Lele. Big Tapu Lele. Tapu Nene, some might call it. Again, just Wall Breaker incarnate. Under Psychic Terrain, with this, plus Moon Blast, plus Focus Blast in its arsenal, this thing has no answers. It can go to Scarf and Specs in 99% of games, and then randomly go like the Calm Mind Iron Defense set, and you Mickey the shit out of someone and win the game that way. Like, it really can just kind of really sneakily surprise you and snag out a win with a Calm Mind variant. But really, most of the time, Scarf and Specs. Click a button. You'll push through the Steel type eventually. Get up some hazards. That's it. Get up some hazards. Plus, no priority is always good into your own team, as long as you draft accordingly to stop opposing priorities. So, pretty cool. Tapu Bulu, I'm not going to pretend like this Pokemon's good. I'm actually going to put it in B tier, below Decidueye. Obviously, Bulu is a stronger Pokemon than Decidueye, but I think when it comes to price point, traditionally, Bulu is less valuable than Decidueye. Now, you give this guy Grassy Glide, and you give this guy Play Rough, and he instantly becomes an incredible Pokemon. But having a Fairy type that does not have Fairy type stab on their strongest stat is really hard to justify using. And the fact that they didn't give it to this guy is crazy. I think the only reason they didn't give it to this guy in Generation 8 is because they wanted Rillaboom maybe to have a spotlight. But Rillaboom would have been better in VGC anyways, and they would play differently. Rillaboom supports his team much better. It knocks, it U-turns, it does things like that. Whereas Bulu would be an SD monster. He would kill everything, and I think that would be really cool. Game Freak just kind of hoed him and did not want him to be good, unfortunately. So he's going to be in B tier because of his lack of coverage. And no Grassy Glide. Why doesn't he have Grassy Glide? Please give him Grassy Glide. Next up is Bapufini. Oh my gosh. Going in S tier as well. 3 for 4 on the S tier Tapus. They really were cooking when they made these guys. Again, we just talked about Water Fairy. This is Prim, but better. That simple. It also can knock, which is crazy. Nature's Madness and Taunt, making it a great stall breaker. But also the Calm Mind Iron Defense sets, Smoke, Choice Scarf, and Choice Specs are actually really good, especially in conjunction with Trick. Really, really sleeper set. It's Feeny. It supports its team so well. It's impossible to kill. I love using Feeny. I think it's an absolutely incredible Pokemon. Now, we can skip a couple. We're not going to rank Cosmoem and Cosmog. They're not actually draftable. I know, silly teleport. Hee hee. No, they're not actually draftable. Don't pretend. Then we have Neolego. Neolego is also going to go in A tier for me. Love this guy. I have it in the Usum tournament right now. Another Snowball Mon. Loved it in Generation 8 in particular, though, with Meteor Beam sets. Meteor Beam speed boosting was a great way of winning the game. Scarf special attack boosting, or just like Spadef rings with like Rocks and T-Spikes and Knock. Has great coverage. Really struggles with hitting Steel types, but if you have a team that can deal with those Steel types, Neolego's a really strong Pokemon, really difficult to deal with. Really good on the Spadef side as well. Like, really strong Pokemon in that regard. So, really am a big Neolego fan. Can't put it in S tier, but it's definitely good. Next up is Zergatry, another Pokemon I love. When early Draft League, Owen loved drafting Z Zergatry. This guy was so much fun with Z sets, letting it boost its speed. In Generation 8, I even drafted on the NCP Championship team. And like those Blunder Policy Hypnosis sets were really cool and definitely, usable in the sense of like giving this a speed boost. However, it's obviously much worse without being able to boost its speed because it's a very bad speed stat. Not very bulky, but only one weakness, and then having a monster special attack set like it does. This guy's scary. It gets Energy Ball and Dazzling Gleam to hit the things that Electric is resisted by as well. So unless you're playing into a Nido or something like that, Zergatry is going to be able to force some progress on your team. And I think that alone makes him worth a B tier slot for me. I like Zergatry a lot. Next, again, one of the debatably best Pokemon in Draft League history. We have... Oh, no, I lied. Okay, we're going to do Selly because I just led into it, but we missed one. We have Celesteela. Again, I'm putting Selly in S tier. It's hard to say otherwise, right? Steel Flying is one of the best typings in the world. We have Four stats. Four stats that we can boost speed boost. Attack, defense, special attack, special defense. I think you can technically boost speed if you want to, actually, as well. Not 100% sure on that. Don't quote me on it. But at least 4 of your 6 stats can boost it by Beast Boost, one of the best abilities of all time, making this thing great offensively, as an autonomous sweeper, or great defensively, even great with like a random Assault Vest set. I think Assault Vest sets are slept on. You could be auto, win the game, auto Meteor Beam, win the game. You could be Leech Seed, protect, and just be annoying. You could be Rocky Helmet and punish the shit out of U-turns. I mean, Sally really does it all. It is a jack of all trades mods. It was so good in Gen 7 with the Z moves. It's still great in Generation 8. And again, would it be ridiculous with Terra in Gen 9, so I'm kind of glad he's not in the game right now. Next up, we have Big Buzzingtons. I'm a big Buzzwole fan. I'm a big Buzzwole fan, but I don't think I can justify putting him in S tier. I love how unique this guy's toolset is. Defensively, incredible, right? As a ground resist, awesome Pokemon. Big 4 times weakness to flying, but really, unless it's like a stab flying move, or it's a specials flying move from something that's like decently strong, Buzzwole probably isn't getting OHKO'd by it. Also, we have access to like bulk up variants and bulk up, sweep and win the game. Also, we have Scarf variants, and I love me some Scarf Buzzwole. I have definitely swept through the game with a Scarf Buzzwole in my day once or twice. Just getting attack boost on attack boost on attack boost with Beast Boost. Getting close combat in Gen 8 was a great thing for it. I love drafting this thing in Gen 8. It was on... No, it wasn't on our championship team when we won BBL, I don't think. I think that was the season after, actually. But still a Pokemon I used to spam. Next up, we have Big Kartana. I'm going to go ahead and put Kartana in S tier as well. Again, one of those Pokemon that's just... It's so annoying to play into Cart, man. Having a Pokemon like Cart where you cannot justifiably sack something to it to get a free switch in a lot of instances, or it's going to get an attack boost and OHKO everything on your team after one attack boost, it's almost suffocating to play against in some matchups, right? And even Pokemon that check it. Say you have a Celesteal, right? A great check to it. You're just going to get knocked off. Rocks, knock off. Then you're like into a K-Rage, a Sacred Sword, or knock off next time. So you have to be careful about how you pivot around it, right? And not only that, that's just Scarf variants. There are CB variants, there are SD variants. SD speed boosting is also a demon in the right matchup if positioned right for the end game. Like, again, a really, really obnoxious Pokemon to deal with in a ton of different matchups. Also, we skipped Pheromosa because it's broken and not allowed. That's it. That's simple. Next up, we have Guzzingtons. I think Addison might fly to California and punch me in the face if I don't put Guzzingtons at least C tier. I think this guy's actually pretty viable. Dark Dragon has a big 4 times weakness to Fairy, but really, outside of that, this guy's pretty cool. I mean, really bad speed tier. Not the bulkiest thing in the world because of how abysmal his defensive stats are, but HP stat is huge. Has incredible coverage and can nuke through those fairies on the switch-ins, especially with like a Roselia Berry. I've used this guy before and actually really enjoyed him. I think he would have been awesome with Terra as a low-tier Terramon. Like, he would have been incredible with Terra. So I'm kind of sad we didn't get Guzzlord this gen. I wish we got some of the Ultra Beasts back at least. Or maybe all of them, we just Terra ban the runs that are super broken, like Silly and Cart. But Guzzlord's a really fun Pokemon. I drafted it a few times in my day, and it's always been pretty awesome on. Next up, we have Necrozma. I'm a big Necrozma Glazer. I'm going to put this thing in S tier. I absolutely love this thing. Again, you could be DD, SD, Calm Mind. You can be, in the past, Rock Polish, Meteor Beam variants. You could be Stealth Rock, so you could be physically defensive. Back in the day, you could just, like, knock and Toxic and be annoying. Prism Armor is one of the greatest abilities in the game. Making super effective damage moves just do, like, no damage. It feels like on a Pokemon as bulky as Necrozma. He's also so cool looking, man. I really want to try Terra Necrozma. I think that guy has a ton of untapped potential that we haven't really seen in draft yet. I think losing Rock Polish was really brutal for it, and losing Toxic was really brutal for it, but again, it's still such a good Pokemon. I think it'd be crazy to not put it in S tier. Next up, we have Magearna. I'm going to rank Magearna for one reason and one reason only. 1, Icy Leagues allow Magearna. Stop allowing Magearna. 2, Kurt put it on the thumbnail, so now I feel like I have to put it on the list, or it's clickbait. I think he had it in S tier. Keep in mind that the thumbnails are clickbait, guys, by the way. I don't think Toucanon is good. As you can see it in D tier, second to the bottom. But Kurt put it on the tier list, so I'm going to put it up here. Please don't allow Magearna, guys. Please don't allow Magearna. Please also don't allow Magearna with 7 complex bands holding a Pokeball, not using a combination of 6 moves. Like, please don't use Magearna. Or don't allow Magearna. If it's allowable, if it's allowed, use it. For sure. But please don't let someone draft it. Next up, we have Big Stakataka. Also, Nickanical is going to be switched because it's not on the thumbnail and it's broken. Stakataka is gonna go here in B tier. Probably, I'd say down here. Really fun mon. I think again another guy that would have been awesome with Terra. Like Terra fighting sets would have went crazy. I think someone in OGDL used Terra Stakataka. I think it was Craft, and it did really well. Really tough typing to be such a physically defensive monster. Be 4 times weak to fighting and ground is kind of brutal. But like OTR sets are really cool, where you get attack boosting. Like the Brave sets are pretty cool. And then like, you know, body press variants are also really annoying. Getting body press session was a great tool for this thing. Solid rocker. Fun Pokemon. I won't lie and say it's like great or I've ever drafted it, but it looks fun. He's a cool guy, right? Next up, we have Blacephalon. I'm going to put Blacephalon in A tier. I don't think I can justify putting it any higher than A tier, just because it is so weak defensively. It really struggled in Generation 7, actually. I thought it was terrible in Gen 7 with Pursuit existing. In Gen 8, I thought it was a lot more fun. Pretty exploitable in the sense that if it's not Scarf, it gets revenged by everything. And if it's not Specs, it really struggles picking up Oko sometimes. And it's not a Pokemon that's bulky enough to live a hit and to it KO something, right? So it has to be positioned well, but it is definitely like an end game I win the game on. I also really enjoyed the Calm Mind variants, and the fat routines were pretty cool. Like I remember using like a lot of OU teams with like super bulky Calm Mind leftovers Blacephalons, because they set up all over Chansey, which was really common at the time. So yeah, cool mon. Next up, we have Zeraora, and we're gonna go ahead and put my boy in S tier. I'm gonna put it above Selly. Again, an absolutely incredible Pokemon. So fast, so strong. It knocks. It has coverage for grounds and grass knot, which is pretty cool. But very often, you kind of just Plastifist knock CC fourth. It could be Volt. It could be a million different things. It could be Blaze Kick. I mean, it could be Bulk Up. It could be Bulk Up Weakness Policy in particular. But my favorite Zera set back in the day, obviously if it was in the game now, I wouldn't be able to, but Subtoxic Zera was awesome. I love Subtoxic Zera. I've had some of my favorite games in Draft League using Subtoxic Zera. There's one game against D-Ray where I just rolled with that mon. It went crazy in the game. Like, absolutely crazy. So, really fun Pokemon. Love me some Zeraora. I think it's definitely really solid. Really great Pokemon. Then lastly, one more. Big Melmetal. Oh no. You're supposed to be right here, I guess? Yeah, I think right there. Where did Melmetal go? Not in C tier. You're going to go a little higher than that, my friend. We're going to go ahead and put Melmetal in S tier. Again, one of those like Iron Hands type build mons. If you have never played a game against a Melmetal, very Iron Hands pilled. In the sense that like nothing Okos it, and you can build it to beat any one of its checks. Very easily. Very often. Very good at doing so. Again, I love Toxic Protect variants. Toxic Protect 2 attack sets were obnoxious. Choice Band sets were obviously great. Iron Defense sets were great. Weakness Policy sets were great. Great coverage. Iron Fist is a great ability for it, obviously, making it ridiculously strong. And yeah, maybe a little bit of Helmet Fodder. If only it existed this gen, where Punching Glove was an item, that guy would have used Punching Glove like crazy, in my opinion. But yeah, you could Thunder Wave things and Discharge things. I remember like one of my favorite sets is like in a stall, you run like Discharge. Because you bait pairs into things, and you pair like you can beat Scarm 1v1 really easy with that. So yeah, really fun Pokemon, really versatile, does its job, great mon. But yeah, that is going to be our tier list. It looks like we never saw, what do you call it, Brockman. So that's Lycan Dusk. We're gonna say that's Lycan Dusk. Really cool mon, obviously. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of the tier list in the comments below. Like the video if you enjoyed, sub if you're new, and show your friends too. Again, we're on our way to 5,000, and I can only get there with your guys' help, so I would really appreciate it a ton. Really helps out smaller creators like myself. And yeah, I'll see y'all next time. Later.